So if you're new to selling on Amazon, you may come across this technological dilemma of thermal label printer or ink printer. Which one do you go ahead with when starting to sell on Amazon? Because it's got to be one or the other, right? Lots of people won't have these sorts of things already to hand, and that's okay. That's fairly normal because there's not really a need for a printer as such if your job doesn't require it, or in general if you find yourself like not really needing to print lots of things. Like lots of local libraries offer printing services if it's the case of you needing to print like the odd thing here and there, and maybe that's how you get started initially. Just every so often when you get your orders and so forth, you go down to the library and you print off all the bits and pieces that you need, because they don't really charge a lot. Of course, that's subjective to the library itself and how much they decide they're going to charge for printing things, and if there's different charges for different types of paper or color or not color, whatever. So it might be that sort of thing is an option to you initially before you actually commit and buy one of these two things. But ultimately it's best to have a thermal or an ink printer yourself at the start of your Amazon journey, just as part of what your initial budget covers. And that's something that I've said time and time again. When you're starting out, one of the key things that you need is one of these kinds of printers. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the differences, and I'm going to give you everything you need to come to a conclusion as to which type of printer you need to start Amazon with. Now let's look at thermal printers first. There's a bunch of perks on here, so I'll start from the top. There's no ink or toner required. That's obviously because they use heat to print, which means it's saving you a lot of money on consumables, especially with how much ink for printers costs these days. This sort of thing is quite useful. Fast printing speed, so it's ideal for bulk label printing with high efficiency. I mean, if you watch other sellers' videos of the prep process and so forth, if you look at the like prep center insights and so forth, if they've got any available, and loads of prep centers do have an insight into what they do, you'll often see that there is something like this, and they've got labels coming out like there's no tomorrow. It's just constantly, really, really fast, crisp, smudge-free labels. And I'll tell you why this is really, really, really important. This sort of thing is perfect for barcode, shipping labels, and just general FBA prep, right? The reason why is because, especially for things like barcodes, if that gets smudged and Amazon can't scan it, then there's going to be a problem. It's going to not only cause a delay in getting that item successfully processed by Amazon to be stored in the warehouse and of course to be shipped to customers when they order. Not only will it delay that, but that can also lead to additional charges for you if Amazon have to correct anything. That's just the case for general prep, and of course barcodes can be the sort of thing that people are consistently caught out on. Even if they've done everything right, they've prepped the item correctly, they boxed up nicely and so forth, it's had a good journey to Amazon. Some things like these little things like barcodes, you don't want those sorts of things to let you down, because if it's smudged and it can't scan, Amazon will charge you to rectify that, okay, if they simply can't do it. So that's a really important aspect to think about when you're deciding on the type of printer. With thermal printers, you aren't going to have smudge problems. They're fairly low maintenance. There's fewer moving parts, so therefore fewer breakdowns. They are compact and durable, so it takes up little space and is built for heavy duty use. So, if you've got a home office set up, or even if you haven't quite got a little space in your house set up, for Amazon, this is obviously going to take up a lot less space than your standard ink printer, because even the small ink printers are bigger than a thermal printer. On the other hand, let's look at ink printers. So versatile printing, prints in color, making it great for marketing materials, which obviously you don't have to worry about too much at all with Amazon. But in case you are going to do something which I'm going to mention a little later on in the video, this can be important. High resolution output, so produces detailed images and text. Multifunctionality, can print labels, invoices, and general office documents, which can be quite useful. Especially if you want to keep physical copies of things like your invoices, then obviously an ink printer can do that. A thermal label printer won't be able to do that. Wider paper compatibility works with different paper types and sizes. Sometimes you can even have a photocopier on them as well. Lower upfront cost. They are generally cheaper than thermal printers for the initial purchase. Of course, that's completely subjective as to where you're getting them from and if you're buying them new or secondhand. But if you are going for new, typically a ink printer is going to be cheaper than a thermal printer. But then, of course, you are weighing up things like, well, ink cartridges and the cost of those and so forth, and the needs. Some further perks to thermal printers and what they're actually used for. Printing FBA product labels. So Amazon requires FNSKU labels on every item sent to an FBA warehouse. A thermal printer prints these directly onto self-adhesive labels, making labeling fast and easy. Shipping labels. So if you're going to print like a UPS or a FedEx shipping label for Amazon shipments, you can use them for that. No ink needed, just peel and stick, much faster than using an inkjet or laser printer. Box content labels. Amazon requires box level content labels for shipments with multiple SKUs, so you can do those. Easily print and apply box contents labels to keep shipments compliant. What you can also do if something is fragile, if you've got a box you're sending to Amazon that's full of fragile things, you might even want to just print off a big fragile sticker using one of these label printers where it's not big, it's not in your face, but it does mark that things are fragile, so maybe you can use them for that purpose as well if you want to. Inventory and warehouse organization. So print SKU labels for storage bins or prep center tracking helps keep inventory organized whether you're storing at home or using a prep service. Now, one of the instances where you won't necessarily need either printer, which you may be wondering about as we're working through this, is do I still need one if I use a prep center? The answer is no, not really, because the prep center will have that stuff readily available and they will do that for you. Ink printers, so you can use them for printing Amazon FBA shipments as well if you don't have a thermal printer, so you can still do the same thing here, and you can do it onto some A4 paper or something, then just tape that onto the box or put it in a wallet or something so the front is protected. And I would advise you to do something like that and protect the front, whether you clearly tape over it where the tape's not going to ruin what information you've got on that paper, or if it is in a wallet and you just seal the wallet at the top. I would say that that's the best of the two to do. Printing box content and packing lists. So Amazon sometimes require box content labels for shipments and multiple SKUs, and you can print packing slips if they are needed. Printing FNSKU labels, which I wouldn't really recommend for an ink printer. So you can do that through here, but I wouldn't say that that's ideal. As I say, with ink printers, you've got a lot more of a chance of smudging, which, as I say, is not going to be very good for you. It will cause delays and there'll be additional costs and so forth. What you can do is print your invoices and business documents, which is where ink printers really do trump thermal printers, where you can do that kind of admin-y stuff with them, and that's quite good to have, especially if you like having physical copies of documents as well. This fifth point right here, this is completely optional, and that's if it's allowed by Amazon. So if you're selling branded products, you may be able to insert thank you notes or inserts into what you're sending off, so into each item. You may be able to do that, but you've got to follow Amazon's guidelines on that, and you really need their say-so as to if you can do that. So in case you can do that, that's what I mean about being able to print in color and stuff, and why that's important. If you're doing something like that, then that can be quite useful for any marketing materials or inserts. So ultimately the question is ink or thermal. So for Amazon FBA and business labels, thermal printer. Okay. For general office stuff, ink. For your prep stuff, and that I would say that's a lot more important, because of course for general office stuff and invoices and so forth, you'll have online copies of them, or if you're given a physical copy of something, you take a picture of it, you store it on your laptop or your computer or whatever. Amazon prep stuff, use a thermal printer. That would be my advice to you. You can still use an ink one, but as I say, you've got to be very, very careful and make sure that there is no smudging. You don't send anything that's smudged. You try and reduce the chances of things being smudged by putting things in wallets and so forth and covering them and just hoping that they have a nice journey whereby they don't get brushed against something or rained on or whatever, whereby it can make the ink smudge. So I would say a thermal printer in this instance is the one, but it's not the end of the world if you have an ink one. Okay, at some point down the line, having both of them will be really useful, but for your starting point, a thermal printer is going to be a lot more useful to you. Yes, there's a bit more of an upfront cost, but you're not paying for ink and so forth. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, this is going to be far more cost effective. Hopefully this video helps you. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.